Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football and cornerbacks. We're getting towards the tail end of our look at the roster, all the position groups, and we're at cornerback today. We've got safety to go. We're also going to do one for special teams this year, which would be a first for us. We usually completely ignore that group, and this year I think we kind of wanted to just dive in, not necessarily stopping at just the specialists, but kind of all of the special teams and how it all works together. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, the special teams one will be fun, but that's another show. Today, we're talking about cornerbacks, which is one of the deepest, if not the deepest room on the roster. Maybe outside linebacker will give it a run for its money, but this is a very stacked group of guys.
Yeah. You know, even if the Seahawks elected not to draft Tariq Woolen in the 5th pick overall in this draft, it still would have been a pretty darn deep group.
Tariq Woolen was last year.
I mean, Devon Witherspoon, sorry. 5th overall.
Yep.
You know, you'd have Woolen, Mike Jackson, who's apparently having the best camp, in fact, of all players, regardless of position. Pete Carroll signaled him out as having just a stellar camp so far. Mm-hmm. Artie Birds came back on a 1-year deal. Trey Brown coming off of a year where he started to feel better, but didn't really get a chance to completely show last year. Kobe Bryant came in as a rookie, played in the slot extensively, looks to improve this year. And that's just the top 6. You know, it's and Tariq Woolen, of course, at the top. It's crazy. I mean, it's a really nice group. It's a nice problem to have. I don't know where everyone's going to get all the snaps, depending on injuries. If everyone is healthy, you know, the odd man out looks to be Artie Burns, maybe just because he didn't play last year, but he was on the roster. And you've got some young guys under good contracts. Mike Jackson looks like he doesn't want his starting job to go away. What do you make of this thing?
I think that, barring injury, which would definitely shake things up, maybe 4 out of those 6 guys make the roster. Artie Burns would probably be an easy cut, and then someone else gets traded because they're worth more. Then you're not cutting them. But that would also allow you to keep any of the other young guys, which there's 4 additional rookies other than Witherspoon. And if any of them show anything, where they could be a special teamer, then yeah, why not flip one of your resources like Trey Brown for a defensive lineman, right?
I think the interesting equation too is when after the safety group, which we will have on our next show, you take a look at a couple players there, and Julian Love and Jarek Reed, who they drafted this year, they can play in the slot, and that makes the conversation a little bit more interesting as far as who makes the roster out of this corner group that we're going to talk about today and who doesn't. The more you can do, as they say. So let's start at the top. Tariq Woolen, 6'4", 209, age 24, drafted in the 5th round last year. You and I both fell in love with the player during the draft process. Hoped we would draft him. We did. Ended up, everyone, though, was wrong in the fact of expectations were set pretty low. Guy just hadn't had a lot of experience. He was fit that height, weight, speed equation the Seahawks love in the past. Have kind of moved away from that a little bit. But, man, did they hit a home run with Tariq Woolen, Keith.
Oh, yeah. He played it at an all-pro level last year. Led the NFL in interceptions, was just absolutely stellar. And as a 5th round pick, you're like, that's crazy. especially when like he got to start at the beginning of the preseason at corner because everyone else was hurt. And in that first preseason game, it went poorly. He did not play well. Neither did Kobe Bryant on the other side. Both of them really struggled in that first preseason game. And but Woolen just kept working and kept getting better. And by the end of the preseason, it was obvious that the job was his and he was never letting go of it. And just played at a really, really high level all year. And honestly, he can get better. Yeah, he was playing at an all pro level, but he can still get better.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. So love, him. He's a fantastic player.
He allowed 51.5% completion percentage of passes thrown in his direction and posted a passer rating against of 48.7, which is elite. It's just
Hmm.
elite. And you go back and you look at his film. I did as part of this process today. And man, he's just the biggest steal of the draft last year.
Oh
One of
yeah.
the best pass route jumpers in the NFL. Very instinctive with the acceleration and the ball skills to back it up. He's just a complete corner. Everything that you would want out of a shutdown on one side guy. And Seattle is lucky to have him. Just enjoyed watching the highlights. I just did highlights this morning and about 12 minutes. And it was just enough to get me back into it and get excited for this coming season because you're right. There's just so much potential. So such untapped learning curve in the NFL. Just that alone, he's just going to get better just based on experience.
Hmm.
And he's just got so much to offer.
There
Uh,
were a few mistakes last year, a couple of communication issues with the safeties, couple of where he picked up the wrong route and left someone wide open, that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to go away in year two. And really where he can just shut down half the field in that back third if they're going to run that cover three. And he's just that good. He really is. He's the real deal.
how confident are you of that statement? Like where you just like, we don't even have to think about it anymore. You just shut that down, shut one third of the field or one half or whatever you want to say. Um,
A guy doesn't come in and play at an all pro level his rookie year and then suck. He'd have to have injuries or there has to be something off the field. The guy doesn't work as hard as he did just to get on the field um, last year because, like I said, it didn't start out pretty for him. In the preseason and stuff, but he worked his tail off. You're not someone who works that hard and then, you know, lets your body go and get out of shape and all that kind of stuff. Like none of that's going to happen. I have complete confidence in Tariq Woolen.
so he did have a little scope on his knee and removed some cartilage type stuff, cleaned it up a little bit here,
Yep.
1st of May. And he is expected back, if not already, kind of going through the motions, jogging, all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
cutting a little bit at this point. Pete Carroll said at the time it would be a 4 to 6 week rehab on that. It's been 4 weeks, for almost 5 weeks, and expected back for camp full strength. So,
Yeah. It
Devin
definitely
Witherspoon,
not a major thing with Woolen. So Witherspoon, I mean, 6 foot 180, so he's smaller, 22. But go watch him play, and you want to talk about a guy who's good in coverage. Like Woolen has all of that height, weight, speed. Even if he
right?
like gets out of position, he can get back in position against the best of them because no one's keeping up with him.
And he
With
does.
Witherspoon just doesn't get out of position. He's just so sticky, and he is a very physical player too. Like even though he's a little bit smaller, he's not afraid of contact. He'll go in. He'll fight with the 6'4" receiver and win. So it has absolutely elite potential. Can't wait to see him in a Seahawk uniform.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, 5th overall, Pete raves about him. He's got the instincts that you like in a corner. He's got them in spades. Yeah, and then the physicality, you mentioned that. It's Pete's corner. I mean, It was one of those things we didn't anticipate, I think, in the draft until just the last couple weeks, where his name started popping up as a potential draft pick of the Seahawks. And you start really looking at him. Initially we wanted, even us wanted Seattle to go in a different direction, but now that he's the pick, you get it, you understand it. They hadn't drafted that high before as a corner. What did you think the Seahawks had in their plan? You saw him during OTAs and mini camps playing a little bit in the slot as well. Do you think that's just to see the diversity that he's got, or do they have plans there to kind of move him inside?
I think it's just to develop him, give him an opportunity to see uh, the field and the offense from different spots, get an idea of what all the jobs are. Because if you're on the outside and you got that guy in the slot on the inside of you, you need to know what his responsibilities are too, because that helps you make your decisions on what you do and that kind of stuff. And so I think that's part of it. And I think the other thing is because of his skill set, he can cover in the slot. A lot of guys, don't cover as well in there because they don't have a boundary, right? Um, you the your receiver can go both ways, right? You can go inside or outside. Where if you're outside on there, they're either going down the field or they're going inside. There's just not as much room that you have to cover with. And he's got the skill set to cover in there, but he's too good. He's going to start. He's going to be on the outside. But what I think they're looking at is okay. If they go to the nickel, they bring in a third corner. Do they bring in Mike Jackson to play on the outside and move Witherspoon into the slot? Or do they leave Witherspoon out there on the outside and bring in Kobe Bryant in the slot? And I think they'd rather do the first one than the second one of those two options.
Again, it's a nice problem to have. I mean, you're right. I think that could be part of this plan as well. Speaking of Mike Jackson, Pete Carroll called him out, said he had the best camp of anybody, quote unquote. He had a dominant camp. He used the word dominant,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't going to relinquish his job. And what great news! I mean, both of us, and me in particular, I think you were a little bit more happy with the way Mike Jackson played last year than I was. I thought maybe they'd go out and upgrade. I thought, well, they drafted Witherspoon. Obviously, they felt the same way, or it was just an opportunity, and that was the position that they drafted. But now that Witherspoon's in, Mike Jackson has this great camp. He doesn't look like he's going to give his spot up. Witherspoon would have been the logical player to go opposite Woolen. Now they've just got tons of options. Mike Jackson looks like he's going to play, get plenty of snaps. He's an outside corner only. Witherspoon could play, on the outside, the inside, wherever you want him to play. They've got Trey Brown, Artie Burns. We'll talk about these guys in a minute. Kobe Bryant, you mentioned. Just a huge selection of players that can play multiple different positions. Trey Brown, Kobe Bryant, now Devin Witherspoon can all play in the slot, as well as a couple safeties we'll mention in our next show. Man, who's going to get the playing time here, Keith?
Yeah, then that's the issue. Who's going to get the playing time? Because what you've got here is 5 or 6 guys. 3 are gonna play a lot, and all of them kind of deserve some playing time. So it really does come down to who's healthy, who is performing the best in practice and that kind of stuff, or who gets the snaps. And it's hard to count out Mike Jackson, given he played well last year, did his job well, and he's only improving. Remember, I mean, he was a guy that only played a few snaps the year before, um, had been a practice squad guy, all that kind of stuff, got pressed into service because of injuries and looked surprisingly good until he himself got hurt. And then other people got pressed into service. But, he wasn't a lock to make the team in any way going into last year. And all he did was come out of, camp in the preseason as the starter
Yeah.
and never gave that up.
Yeah,
I never
Artie Burns was there, a guy that they brought in to kind of take that spot.
yeah,
It was available to him.
that was Burns's job. They signed him, brought him over from the Bears to be that guy, and he never got on the field. Was it 3 snaps all season with the defense? Um,
Which tells you
and
everything you need to know about Mike Jackson. A,
yeah,
he took that job, never let it go, and then stayed healthy all year. I watched a little bit of Mike Jackson too, and he's a physical guy. He likes to tackle, he likes to get his head in there. He likes to break up passes, not a huge interception machine, not near the anticipation or makeup speed that Tariq Woolen has, but he's got enough instincts and physicality to play that position really well the way Pete Carroll likes it to be played. And that's really the key here. He's kind of a Pete Carroll kind of cornerback. Devin Witherspoon's the same sort of player, physicality wise, and they're similar in size. Not, Mike Jackson's quite a bit bigger at 6'1", 210, but 6 foot, 185 pounds on Witherspoon, and the way that he plays is similar in style. I'm kind of excited. I mean, the top 3 corners now on this team are legit, and it's gonna be something. How about Artie Burns? Artie Burns comes back on a 1-year deal.
I'm
It's
so
a
surprised he signed that.
I am too,
Like, why? If you're Artie
especially with
Burns,
this crowded room.
yeah, you signed last year to come in and um, get it, be the starter in Seattle and get a chance, and you never even get on the field like at all. You spend the entire year on the sideline, and then you watch them draft, a guy number 5 overall at your position, crowding the room even more, and you go, you know what? Let's sign up for more of that. Um, I mean, Artie Burns was a starter in Chicago and a pretty dang good one.
First round draft pick out of Pittsburgh in 2019, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, he was a pretty damn good player before coming to Seattle, and he can't get on the field because of how crowded that room is and the talent above him. Like, if you're Artie Burns, why do you come back to Seattle? Why do you not go to a place where you at least have the opportunity to compete for a job and get on the field?
Yeah. Maybe he's looking at it the same way you look at it. One of these guys got to go. Maybe the Seahawks flip a draft pick. It's not going to be Burns. It could be
Yep.
Trey Brown, could be Kobe Bryant,
Mm-hmm.
it could be Mike Jackson.
Yep. Could be any of those 3.
And then Artie Burns would potentially have a spot, at that point, or at least a
Yeah, but
rotation
he'll make
opportunity.
the roster, but will he actually get on the field again?
Will he make the roster with this group? You've got Kobe Bryant, Trey Brown, who didn't really play, Mike Jackson, Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen. Artie Burns seems to be the odd man out here, and
He's
that,
definitely an odd man out.
yeah, yeah, interesting. All right,
Because he's the 6th guy out of 6. The other 2 guys, we keep mentioning him. Let's go ahead and talk about him. Kobe Bryant is last year's pick in the 4th round, if I remember right. Um,
yeah,
Taken before Tariq Woolen. Um, Thought to be,
yeah.
um, ready to come in and play, and maybe not to have the highest ceiling of the cornerbacks in that year's draft, but the most pro ready. Um,
4-year starter.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then what happened though was that he got moved inside into the slot, which is not his position. He's an outside corner. Um, but
why
the
do
other
you
was
think the Seahawks did that last year, Keith?
moved him
Before
in.
before training camp really even started, they already had that decision made,
Well,
and
they knew that they were going to have one, they were going to have problems in the slot, and two, the way they had things set up with Artie Burns and Mike Jackson and Tariq Woolen and the other guys that they had in camp last year. They knew they had outside corners and they were lacking slot. Justin Coleman was really the guy that they brought in, and I think they knew that he was not the same Justin Coleman as he had been the first time around in Seattle, where he was really a really good slot corner. You've seen him deteriorate the last couple of years when he hasn't been in Seattle, and so I think they were looking at how do we get guys on the field, right? Get your best 11 out there, um, even when you're in the nickel. It's why you see even in camp and stuff, where you see a guy like Witherspoon taking snaps in the slot. Some of it's training and getting them to know the responsibilities of all the positions, but some of it's also like at some point you have to figure out a way to get the guys on the field. And the Seahawks went into last year as a rebuilding team, right? They took 2 corners, they took 2 um, tackles, they took 2 pass rushers, um, and we're like, let's see what we got. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. Bryant played well enough to get on the field. He also played well enough or played poorly enough early in the season to get himself off the field, and then got himself another chance and continued to improve. So I thought at the end of the season he was playing really well, but at the beginning of the season it was kind of rough.
So you mentioned just a little bit ago that Kobe Bryant would be the second or possibly even third option as a slot corner on this team, with Devin Witherspoon playing on the outside primarily, but moving inside when they bring 3 corners in. Mike
Mm-hmm.
Jackson would take the other spot. Kobe Bryant's the odd person out. Is he on the trade block, Keith?
He might be. Yeah. If Witherspoon is the real deal and everyone stays healthy, I think you need to keep 2 out of the 3 of Jackson, Brown, and Bryant. And which one has the most trade value to you?
That's a
And
good question.
given that Trey Brown has been in the been in the league a year longer, so his contract is shorter, and he's coming off a year in which he barely played because of an injury the year before. And you have a guy in Jackson who played well in Seattle, but Seattle's got a system that works well for guys like that, in the Brandon Browner kind of style, and that doesn't always translate outside of Seattle. And then you got Kobe Bryant, who was liked as in the draft process and showed a lot of improvement last year and looked pretty good down the stretch last year. I think of those 3 guys, he's the one with the most trade value.
I think he
And
is the one with the most trade value, but he's also the one that's most valuable, I think, to Seattle for the exact same reasons, in that he's got high football intelligence, leadership qualities, good ball skills that he's shown in the past. A little bit
yep,
last year, he was close, on a few interceptions last year, had some tip balls, contributed in other ways,
yep,
recovered fumbles, forced fumbles, etc.
really worked.
Um,
But I think more importantly, he really worked his butt off, because the beginning of the year, like that same preseason game where, um, Woolen looked really poor, Bryant looked really bad as well. And for him, it didn't bounce back quite as quick. It took him more time, but he worked and worked and worked and got better. And the coaches are going to love that. Having guys like that on your roster, that kind of stuff, the more of those guys you have, the more it just bleeds into everyone else. And so, yeah, there's a lot of value in Kobe Bryant. He's also only in year 2, right? You got 3 more years of team
right,
control.
right.
So,
I would almost prefer that they try to trade Brown if this is going to happen. This is pure speculation,
mhm,
because he hasn't been on the field anyway, so we're not really missing anything. I already saw Kobe Bryant significant. I mean, he played significant snaps last year. Starter most of the year in the slot. Had over 700 defensive snaps.
mhm,
One, he's a good corner. I think he just took some time to adjust to that slot position, which he had not played before. I would see pretty sizable improvement this year if he works as hard as he worked last year and continued that in the offseason. Coaches gave him some things to work on. Comes back, he's ready. Um, it's like I said, it's a nice problem to have with Witherspoon, Bryant, Brown, all in the slot, plus a couple of safeties that are hybrid oriented that could also play there.
mhm.
It's an abundance of talent that this team has on the defensive backfield when you combine both groups.
I think
Oh,
Bryant has the most value, both as a trade partner and as a person on the roster. Um, but at the same time, I think he's got the lowest ceiling of those 3 that we're talking about,
it's possible. I mean,
just in
he
terms of
lasted to the
physical
fourth
traits.
round for a reason. But so did
Yep.
Trey Brown.
Trey Brown is smaller, 5'10", 185. Been in the year league now for a couple seasons, going into year 3, and didn't play much early on in his rookie season because I don't know reasons. This is back when the coaching staff was still trying to not play young players and hope that they could put a contender together with veterans and not have to deal with young mistakes. That they've changed that tune again and gone back to what they did that made him great. But Brown, when he got on the field, like I did not expect Trey Brown to be a good player.
Yeah, I
This
remember
is
that.
yeah, this is well. I think it's well documented because you go look at his college tape and he held on every play. Like every play is a penalty in the NFL if you take what he was doing. And I was just like, you can't do that. But they worked with him. They got him out of some bad habits. They got him into doing some different things, and he looked really freaking good
Oh, I think
in
he
the
played what five games that rookie season before he got hurt.
yeah. He looked really freaking good in those last 3 that he played, and then he got hurt. And that was terrible because he looked like he was becoming a guy that you could depend on and put in there as a "Hey, this is a guy that we can know that's on the roster. He's going to become part of the core." But then he got hurt and missed the rest of the year, and then just it was a slow recovery. He wasn't ready for last year, and he didn't even get back onto the roster until mid-season. And even then, he had a hard time getting on the field because Jackson and Woolen were so good, and Bryant
Yes,
had improved to a point where you're not taking him off the field either. And so Brown didn't play much, and so that's a kind of a lost year as far as his play and his development and all of that. But he's still got 2 more years of team control, and there's still a tremendous amount of talent. And like I said, I think he's um, got a higher ceiling than Kobe Bryant because of physical traits, speed, agility, those kind of things. And so, yeah, I mean, can he stay healthy? Can he or is he healthy? Can he stay healthy? I don't see any reason why not. And it's just a matter of let's see what we got there. I'm really excited to see him in camp and see what kind of player he is right now.
I am too. All right, we've got a handful of players here that are undrafted free agents and older vet type guys that are invited into the 90-man roster for a look. Isaiah Dunn, 6 foot, 189, explosive leaper with excellent speed, long arms, quick
And only
twitch.
24.
24
So
years old.
yep, going into his 3rd year um, only 24. Like, wow, I don't remember like, he's just young. There's
Also
25-year-old draft picks.
potentially can play in the slot as well. So
Mhm.
just another a name to put on the watch list. Didn't hear any negatives, didn't hear any positives out of camp, but he's still on the roster, so that's a good positive. Lance Boykin, 6'2", 200 pounds bigger, long leg, linear type corner, size and length, knows how to get to the catch point, good ball skills, team captain. Um, don't know really anything else about him,
He's a
and
he's a zone cover guy. He doesn't have the agility. He's not as athletic as I think the team is used to having at corner. But overall, like he's long and has some good linear speed and um, is a cover 3 guy. He's not a guy that is going to be a man corner.
could he be a safety potentially?
Maybe. I'm more interested if the Seahawks are going to start moving corners to safety. I'm more interested in seeing what Mike Jackson looks like as a strong safety,
Interesting.
especially given Ryan Neal's success
I
in
mean,
making that
but
transition at that
yeah,
size.
but can you imagine? I mean, Mike Jackson is already successful as a corner. Started 17
I,
games last year.
I know, I know. I'm just throwing out ideas. Um,
Okay.
yeah, 6'2", 200. I could see it, but at the same time, this isn't a guy that's really athletic. So
Well, I agree with you on the zone guy. His zone based
Mhm.
coverage scheme. Yeah. Arquan Bush, 6 foot, 187 pounds, 4'5", 40, outside cornerback, good size, decent footwork, um, decent production, 32 pass defense, including 9 interceptions in college. Um, Again, just another guy to come in and see if he can make the roster. And it would have to be in special teams.
Yeah. All of these guys that we're mentioning as undrafted guys and Dunn that you mentioned earlier, they have to excel in special teams. That's their shot at the roster because there's at least six guys ahead of them, right? And you're not keeping seven corners. So you need to convince the team that your special teams ability is worth cutting Artie Burns
Yes.
or trading one of the other guys. Um,
And they kept Artie Burns on the roster all year last year just as a safety measure. I mean,
yeah.
he wasn't going to see the field. They kept him on the active roster. It wasn't like he was not dressing every week either.
Yeah, he wasn't a healthy scratch. He just literally never saw the field. But he was ready to come in. If either of the starters had gone down, he was ready. They just never did.
Yeah. All right. There's a couple more guys three more guys on my list actually. James Campbell, 5'11", 183 pounds, Montana State, 4'4", 40, slot
I know
guy.
nothing about him. Like I could not find um, information on him
Yeah.
as far as like overall.
Yeah, it's pretty void out there. That was it. I got his measurables, and he's from Montana State. That's it.
Yeah, the NFL.com did not even have him listed as a prospect in the draft. So
So there you go.
yeah,
Uphill, James Campbell.
yep.
Montre Braswell, 6 foot, 190 pounds, also runs a 4.440.
So that man was 5'10", 194.
Okay. I don't know where I got my information. I I
Hmm.
I kept my windows open for a while and I've shut them down. So I think I got them from NFL.com though. Strength, athleticism, natural ball skills, press cover type corner. Um, that's it. That's all I've got. Poor
For
recognition
him,
skills.
he is a very good kick returner with big playability in that realm, and I think this is a guy that um, if he makes the team and has any impact in the NFL, it's because he's like the second coming of Devin Hester, who was a at best mediocre cornerback, but the best return guy of all time. And um, to a point where they moved him to offense just to try and use some of that ability outside of kick returns, and it never really materialized into much. But started out as just a guy that's listed as cornerback, but you don't want him to play. And I think um, if Broswell makes the team, it's because of that return skill because he's made himself uncuttable by being super explosive in the return game.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. But there's just so many other return guy options on this team.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely a long shot. Benji Franklin, 6 foot, 172 pounds. That's all I've got. I don't
He's
have
not
any
even
notes on him.
listed. He's not even listed on the roster as a corner. He's not listed as a safety either. He's just
He's a
generically
defensive back.
defensive back.
Yeah. I put him in this group because of his size, 6 foot, 172 pounds. I couldn't see that guy playing safety in that size, but
172 pounds. That is tiny
yeah,
for an
Benji
NFL
Franklin.
player.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
I with you. I know nothing about this guy. He could come in and just
So
blow us away in camp,
yeah,
and we'll all be shocked. But
yeah, right.
um, it wouldn't be the first time that a guy that we can't find any information on, and we think of as like barely a camp body comes in and impresses. Um, but yeah, I think he's got a very long road towards making the roster at this
I
point.
think anybody beyond the top six really does.
Oh
this
yeah.
group is so deep that unless catastrophic problems exist,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be talking about the guys at the top here: Tariq Woolen,
Yeah.
Witherspoon, Jackson, Burns, Brown, Bryant. Um,
These other guys are camp bodies to help the receivers get the reps they need. Um, and they're fighting for hopefully a spot amongst all of them, but only if they can convince the coach that a guy like Artie Burns or Kobe Bryant are expendable in order to create a roster spot for them. And
so
that's going to be hard to do.
where does this group rank? Like in the NFL, the NFC West?
Well,
Do we have one of the best?
it's hard to say because we don't have we have projections of Devin Witherspoon and his draft status is the 5th overall pick, and this assumption that he's going to play at a Pro Bowl or maybe All Pro level because of that, and because of there's no, I mean, his college tape is just absolutely elite, and so you expect that, but until we see it, it's hard to count that. But the
Quantify it,
fact that
right?
yeah, you've got Tariq Woolen who did it for an entire season, played it at an all pro level, right? And you've got Witherspoon who has that potential. I just need to see it, and everyone else needs to see it. Um, and then you've got Mike Jackson, who I think you underrate a lot, and
Clearly,
is and
clearly,
is showing his value in camp, in OTAs and stuff this year. Um, just that three gives you three starters for two positions on the outside that are all really good players, and then you throw in, um, Burns, Brown, and Bryant um, as guys that are good enough to start for most teams and fighting for a job, right? Fighting to get on the field at all. Um,
yeah,
the, honestly, find me a better group. Find me a better top six anywhere in the NFL.
agreed. Yeah, this is as
You're,
deep as it gets. Really, I mean, it is.
yeah.
It's as deep
I
as it
mean,
gets.
I will say that the Jets have a really good group of corners. Sauce Garner was a rookie of the year over Woolen. DJ Reed, we all know he's playing at a Pro Bowl level. They've got some young kids there as well. That's a really good group. They're the only ones that come to mind that are close. But when you get six deep, there's nobody. There's nobody that's got six guys that could start the way
Yeah,
Seattle does. This is such an elite group.
fun. I'm really interested to find out if it really does make it more difficult to score on the Seahawks, because last year we had a decent corner room. Tariq Woolen and Jackson started. We had,
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Bryant. Essentially, we're going to have the same people on the field plus Witherspoon. It will be interesting to me if it has a great effect having Witherspoon, because
Yeah, you've also got Diggs is the same, and um, Ryan Neal played extremely well last year.
mhm,
The defensive backs were not the problem
no,
at any point last year.
no, but there was such, and we were seventh in sacks. I mean, and equal, in pressures. I don't know where the problem was specifically with that defense, but it just didn't do the job.
Yeah,
We'll have to figure that out. But
it's when they got pressure, they got home. They got sacks, but they didn't get pressure a lot. There was a lot of plays where there was nothing in terms of pass rush, and a quarterback could sit there for an hour and a half and wait for someone to get open. And it's hard to play cornerback for more than 4 seconds.
mhm.
It really is.
All right, let's get out of here. Great show on the cornerback position. Next up is the safeties. That should be a good show as well. I really like that group. You're a little less enthusiastic than I am. We'll find out why. You can find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWC Hawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms and YouTube. When you find it, hit that subscribe button. Leave us a great comment if you like the show. and share it with your friends and family. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.